Call to order the Dickinson City Commission meeting for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. First item up is the order of business. Mrs. Carlson, are there any changes to the order of business?
President Decker and Commissioners, there is one change that I have, and it's in number 7B. We are pulling the final plat acre subdivision.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Carlson. I would like to propose one change to the order of business. I would like to propose that we pull, since we do not have Mr. Winningham nor Mrs. Winko in person. She is here over the telecom, but I would rather have her here in person, and I'd like to have Mr. Winko here. I would like to pull, for your guys' consideration, pull the Chapter 4 revision, table the actual public hearing on the ordinance, but put an amendment into admin for us to discuss the Chapter 4 so we can actually put the revisions in so people can see them to what we agreed upon. We'll just add that to the admin section, and we can put that as E.
If we need a motion, I would make that motion.
I have a motion to amend the agenda to pull the public hearing for Chapter 4 revisions and move them to admin so that we can have the discussion about the actual changes that we're proposing.
I'll second.
With a second by Commissioner Walla. The first motion is by Commissioner Oderman. Any discussion on these order of business amendments?
So, and this is just changing this to a discussion item, not an action item tonight, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Because Mr. Winningham is not here and
Yep.
Mrs. Winko is not in person.
I think that is pertinent. And
So just for clarification, we'll discuss it during administration, but we won't make any votes today on it?
We won't.
And then we'll do first hearing at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
And then Ms. Winko can do into the actual Chapter 4, she can make those changes so that the public can read those changes.
Sure.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Is there any more discussion on the order of business? I will ask for separate votes on this because of the changes. Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The consent agenda, are there any items on the consent agenda that commissioners wish to discuss?
Mr. President, move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Frederick,
Second?
second by Commissioner Commissioner Sobeluk. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. First item up in administration and finance is redistricting the county, and that'll be handled by City Attorney Winko.
Good evening, Mr. President and Commissioners. Before you, you get consideration for a motion that needs to be made by you as a commission. Pursuant to Century Code Chapter 1107, anytime that we have a federal census, the counties are required to reevaluate their redistricting lines and protocols. And part of that Century Code requirements requires the county create a redistricting board. And pursuant to those membership requirements, a citizen or member of the governing body selected by the governing body of the city having the largest population must be present and be a member on that board. So what that means in short order is the city either has to appoint someone from the commission or a citizen of the city to sit on the redistricting board. And so whoever that person is, I would just need a motion, final approval from the commission
Thank you, Mrs. Wenko. I have had discussions with City Administrator Winningham, and my recommendations to him, because Ms. Walla and Mrs. Sobeluk sit on the county planning and zoning, my recommendations to Mr. Winningham were that both Commissioner Frederick and Commissioner Oderman be our representatives on this redistricting.
This isn't the zoning. This isn't the ETZ.
Oh, okay.
This is the,
Okay, this is different.
This
item
is
then.
different.
this is the
Okay.
congressional redistricting.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess I'd look for a volunteer on this
I
one.
don't have an attachment. Is there an attachment on this?
I didn't get into the attachment. That's, I guess, why I was confused. I thought I didn't get an attachment. Okay.
Correct, Mr. President. There's no attachment because at this point, this is the preliminary stages of the process. The committee has to be formed and then the committee will meet.
Okay.
And there will be several deadlines and meetings thereafter. But the purpose of this is simply to appoint someone from the commission or a citizen from the city to serve on this board for the purpose of evaluating and discussing the redistricting protocols for Stark County.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Mr. Oderman?
I think it's worthwhile for us to, do we need an action tonight, Mrs. Wenko?
Yes, you do. The county is up against deadlines itself. There are certain requirements on when we have to have this redistricting meeting. It has to be done within 3 months after the official publication of the federal census. So I would recommend that you make a decision this evening so that there aren't any holdups with the deadlines that the county has to meet.
Well, that changes my comment then. I was going to say maybe give us some time to noodle on it and think about who would best fit on this, but we have to make a decision tonight.
Do we have an idea when the meetings, Mrs. Winkle, are happening?
They have to be done by the end of the year. We just did this one for another county. We're planning to meet mid-November. There's probably going to be some meetings in December, likely to be 2 or 3 meetings total.
I mean, I'd be more comfortable maybe talking about it a little bit tonight, thinking about it, and making a decision at the next meeting.
Commissioner Orman, just so that you are aware, I did get a request from the state's attorney's office that this was to be put on the agenda this evening. So I think they are expecting the city to make a decision this
Okay.
evening.
Well, does anybody have time in their schedule besides me?
I guess Christina, could you share with us, like, exactly what will the duties of this person be?
Essentially, what will happen is the members of the committee are going to be the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, the state's attorney, the city representative, a township representative, a citizen selected by the second largest city within the governing population, and the county auditor. And essentially, what will happen is the board will meet and then they will look at the various voting districts, determine population, try to equalize the various voting districts, and to determine whether or if not there needs to be any sort of restructuring of those required districts. So like I said, there are probably going to be 2 or 3 meetings that will be required before the end of the year. I can't imagine it's going to be too much of a time commitment for any one person to kind of delve into, but essentially that's the purpose of the committee is to look at those numbers and to look at those guidelines.
So this is like the voting districts for the county commissioners, like when we vote in the
Yeah.
5 different districts for county
Right.
commissioners, or what districts are we talking about?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
is for the county districts.
Now,
Okay.
and Mrs. Wanko, my understanding as well is that this group will be responsible for determining whether or not those county commission seats are, who can run for them are based on districts or an at-large process.
It's very possible, depending how the
I think it's going to be pretty hard for an at-large
Yeah, but I would agree.
because we have
I-
largest
yeah.
population.
Yeah.
So there's going to be districts. So if nobody else wants to, I will do it. I do have time. I know you guys' schedules are busy, but if someone else would like to do it, I'm fully,
And I'm open to, but if you,
if you
I-
want to, I mean, you can
yeah,
have
I'm
at
happy
it.
to take that one on.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm good with that.
Okay. Do you need a motion and a vote, or just the, okay.
Yes.
So we have Commissioner Sobeluk, who said she will fill that role.
I'd make a motion to have Commissioner Sobeluk fill the position.
We have a motion by Commissioner Frederick to fill the position with Mrs. Sobeluk,
Second.
second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further discussion? All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next item up is the gaming site authorization for Buffalo Wild Wings. Mrs. Winko?
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners. Before you is a request for Buffalo Wild Wings for a gaming site authorization. City staff has been in contact with their organization. The city does not object to gaming in the party room or overflow area as long as it is strictly restricted to 21 years and over, and it will be the responsibility of the applicant to ensure that individuals under the age of 21 do not enter this area of access. And then the city staff would recommend approval based on those requirements and conditions.
Thank you, Mrs. Winko. Any questions for Mrs. Winko on this application?
Prairie Grit Adaptive Sports. What do they benefit? Do we know?
Mr. Overman, that is a question I cannot answer. Rita might be able to have that question answered for you.
It comes out of Mina, and it has for like wheelchair kids and stuff, and for kids, and it comes out of Mina.
Do we know if they support any activity in Dickinson?
All the funding goes back to Mina.
Okay. I guess I kind of struggle with gaming resources coming out of this region or going out of this region if we're going to approve a gaming permit. Maybe I'm the one.
No, I think we've had this discussion before.
Or
So,
haven't.
any of the commissioners have feelings on this?
I mean, they look like a really good organization. I mean, I reviewed their website and stuff like that, but it's difficult for, I mean, I think we have a responsibility in terms of the oversight of these gaming permits to ensure that we're approving gaming permits that are going to benefit activities that benefit Dickinson and the surrounding area.
I don't disagree. I know we approved one for an organization out of Kildare, but it is the surrounding area.
Yeah.
And Kildare participates in this area, so.
I would agree, and I wonder, this is an Attorney General sheet, but I wonder if there's some way we could add that to the application so we're not having to search for that? Like, how does this impact our community, or how does it benefit our community as part of the application somehow?
This form is required by the state.
Okay.
We could have our own application though, addendum, correct?
Well, we
Yeah.
can maybe add an addendum, but we can't
Yeah.
change the
Well, no, I understand that, but
But like a city of Dickinson specific part of the form or something like that. Mm-hmm.
I tend to agree with everybody. I mean, it's just, pretty soon we're gonna have charities from Fargo
Yeah.
coming out here and trying to,
Mm-hmm.
take over our gaming sites. And
Yep.
I don't really know how that benefits us. I mean, maybe it benefits this business, but I don't see how it benefits the, people here.
I, do we need a motion to deny? Okay, I'll move to deny.
We have a motion to deny the application
I'll second.
with a second. A motion by Commissioner Oderman to deny, second by Commissioner Walla. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think we should share with them, if this motion carries the way we're going, that we would be happy to approve something with a more local charity,
Absolutely.
so that we're not just denying it
Right.
overall, but where we want it to be beneficial to our region.
And I'm not opposed to Prairie Grit Adaptive Sports coming back and saying, we're gonna do something
Something in the.
in our area
Yeah.
with some of the money that's earned here.
Maybe they do a summer camp for some youth in our region or something, and that's what this will fund, or, that would be,
But I mean, if they come back with a plan that says that, we intend on giving some money to this and that
Yeah.
as part of this, then I would listen to
Well-
using the same charity. But for all the money just to go up to Minot and not benefit anybody in the city, that just doesn't make much sense to me.
And Commissioner Friedrich, I think with your comments about like an addendum to this application that we get, with a question on there where they could maybe provide a narrative along those lines of, but we plan on investing in the Dickinson community or the surrounding area with our gaming revenue. Right now, we just don't have that information, so I don't think we can vote affirmative on this in good conscience, so.
So I believe the ownership group for Wild Wings is out of Minot.
Yes, they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to deny? Any further discussion? Not, we'll vote.
Well, go ahead.
so
One more-
since it's a motion, oh, sorry.
It's a motion to
I mean-
deny the application.
could we just possibly table this and go back to them? So we can get it back on next month? Or
They
next,
don't have to reapply then?
so they wouldn't have to reapply? I mean,
I mean, that's
I-
your
I-
decision.
I would rescind my motion and move to table.
that wouldn't just.
Pending additional information.
And then staff can reach out to them, share our concerns, and
Okay.
maybe resubmit this on our next
Yep.
meeting.
Okay, so
I'll rescind my motion and move to table.
Commissioner Overman has rescinded his motion to deny. There is a motion to table by Commissioner Frederick.
Second.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion to table by Commissioner Frederick, second by Commissioner Oderman. We'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Frederick,
Aye.
Mr. Oderman,
Aye.
Ms. Walla,
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk,
Aye.
chair votes aye. This application is tabled. Our next item up is an application by the American Legion for a gambling site at Men's Den. Mrs. Winko dropped off. So, anybody else want to carry this? I think this is a standard application that they've had in the previous years, American Legion's had in the, correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Binstock?
They have an application in previous years. This is due to men's day, we want to add electronic food tab.
Okay,
The police department have looked at it in the area where they want to have it. It's separate from the one that's up there and everything, so it would be a bit minor.
okay.
So, my question is there a certain stipulation? I mean, are we gonna pretty soon have these everywhere?
That was my.
Like in the grocery store?
I was
or-
going to voice the same concern, Commissioner Friedrich.
I mean,
Our code doesn't allow them everywhere.
but hair salons it does, or do you have to have a liquor license, or?
What?
Like, you can't have it in the restaurant area, you have it in the bar area.
So what does code stipulate?
That it can't be underneath.
So like I could set up an area in my garage that I'm not gonna allow people under 21 in and have pull tab machines?
That's
Are you
with it. I guess I don't understand. To me, this one, I'm not sure I understand that.
Mr. President, obviously the stipulations as far as you cannot have minors present or have access to the machine.
Just in that area, though. But any business could build an area.
Well, there has to be
for these
separations, such as Fat Fish did a really nice job in that area. There's other places that have applied that they're required to have separation out of sight, not access to it. Those are some of the stipulations. Obviously, wouldn't allow a gaming device in somebody's residential home, but a commercial venue. So, yeah, this is a tough decision as far as which direction the commission wants to go as far as what type of business you want to allow these in.
We could have a grocery store ask
You could
for
potentially,
these machines in where they used to have their arcade or something, and,
as long as there'd only be 21 or over allowed in that spot, yes.
is that where we want to go with this?
Can I just point out, on the application, everything's checked no, even pull tabs.
It's activity to be conducted, electronic pull tabs.
I'm missing
Where this is not paying any rent.
that. I know.
Well, I don't, I'm just opening up for discussion.
I have the same concerns you do, Commissioner Friedrich. I do think that this is potentially like a Pandora's box situation where, and it's unfortunate the code does not outline what kind of businesses or facilities can have gaming devices in them.
Well, this is new to Men's Den.
Yeah.
This electronics is new. They've had the pull tab machines before in the past at their old facility, if I'm correct. I think the Allegiant had some pull tabs over there.
I
really? Okay.
can't confirm that, and I'd have to double check that.
Yeah, that changes things for me if this isn't an established thing that they've done in the past. but-
Didn't they have it before, the American Legion? Oh, I thought they
So,
did.
On this
So-
second page where Commissioner Waller told us everything was checked no, it says, question number 4, is pull tabs involved either a jar bar standard or electronic dispensing conducted at the site, and they marked no. So that would lead me to believe they don't have one today, and we're adding something new.
That is correct. This is a new, since they moved to the new place in the stand, there is a space for, there's a space that's away from minors that they could have the pool taps in there. I think there was some concern discussed at the police department about getting the pool taps and then coming back to where the minors are allowed and opening them up.
I guess there is concern here. If you remember correctly, you did authorize them to have a liquor license as well. So you could potentially have people go there, consume alcohol, and play electronic gaming devices in basically a salon.
I just, I don't know.
You wish to table this and have,
I just don't know if this is something we need to discuss further.
well, then,
We could have literally every commercial business in town
Yeah.
apply at some point for this. And one's off the top of my head, I'm thinking it was like hotels. Every hotel could request this,
Yep.
with a bar or not.
Yep.
Because they're gonna have transient travelers. What better off if you got video?
Well, have an
Gaming machines.
adult arcade.
That's, yeah.
Yeah. Put one in the mall. Reopen the Pied Piper.
If that's where we wanna go, that's fine, but I don't know if that's what we want. For the most part, the gaming sites are, staffed at some point during the day too, I would imagine this is gonna be just a bag behind the counter that if somebody wins, that they pay them out of.
So you wish,
President Decker, I just want to let you know, Ms. Michael is coming over to check it out there, so if you guys like to move on to something else, we can just move over.
Play the Jeopardy music.
Wait a few minutes and she'll probably explain to you.
Okay.
I think we've discussed it.
I mean, unless there's some new information that you can add to this, but
Said she's coming right in.
why don't we just, yeah, move to D for a second and come back?
So, as we're processing this one in this new location, yeah, I would feel comfortable holding on this and even looking at how do we want to define this?
Well, yeah, and Commissioner Sobeluk, that's, I guess, where my mind would go to is, do we need to look at our code and see how this is defined in code?
And maybe in that aspect too, we put in the code that what we discussed with the Buffalo Wild Wings.
Beneficiaries, yeah.
Yeah, the beneficiaries,
Yeah.
and that be provided to us up front. So. And we can table this if you wish to wait on that information.
Yeah, I guess Ms. Winkle's not gonna make it right away. I'd make a motion to table this one also.
Second?
A motion to table this application by Commissioner Frederick, second by Commissioner Sobeluk. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. This application is tabled. Next item up is the Gallagher Benefit Services, their actuarial services consulting agreement. Deputy City Administrator Carlson will be handling this.
Thank you, President Decker and Commissioners. Before you is an amendment agreement to extend one more year with Gallagher Benefit Services for their actuarial services. This was discussed in the Retirement Board meeting in October, and it was approved to go forward with this, and I'm asking for an approval of the Commission to go forward with the actuarial services with Gallagher for one more year.
Thank you, Mrs. Carlson. Any questions for Mrs. Carlson on this consulting agreement with Gallagher? Hearing no questions, I'd look for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Walla,
Second.
second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Ms. Walla,
Aye.
Mr. Oderman,
Aye.
Mr. Frederick,
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We are approaching the 5 o'clock time for public hearings and public comments. And in our presence this evening, we have our newly formed Youth Commission officers, and they're in the audience. And I would ask them to please assemble behind the podium, and I will swear them in to their new official duty.
Welcome, everyone.
I have these in alphabetical order, so Brooklyn here. Dante. Hold on to that.
Mr. Mayor, maybe just have them introduce
Yes,
themselves.
I'll have them introduce them. Braylon?
Cannot.
She didn't make it, okay. Parker? Truman?
On the end.
Oh, there you are, okay. Emily? There you are. Abigail? Riley? William? Tierney? There you are. Augustine, there you are. Everybody has one, right? Before I swear you in, well, I will swear you in first, and then I'll have you all introduce yourself to the public. So if there are anybody that wishes to come forward, take photos of our youth commission as they get sworn in.
You can come up behind the desk here if you'd like.
Yep, if you take the photos. Yep, that's fine.
You guys can come back here, that's fine.
And this is the oath of our youth commission. Raise your right hands, please. I state your name.
I, Gallagher,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of North Dakota,
the Constitution of the State of North Dakota,
uphold the home charter,
uphold the home charter,
municipal code of the City of Dickinson,
municipal code of the City of Dickinson,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the Youth Commission
the duties of the Youth Commission
in the City of Dickinson,
in the City of Dickinson,
Stark County, North Dakota,
Stark County, North Dakota,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. And I will have you all, as you come up and introduce yourselves. The first person I have up, I will have you sign this. That's your copy, and we'll get you a copy of this. So Brooklyn's up first. If everybody would want to step off the side so Brooklyn can sign. And then you can introduce yourself to the other commissioners and to the public.
Hi, my name is Brooklyn Berger, and I am a senior at Trinity High School.
All right. Thank you. Dante?
Mr. President. And if they're an officer, they should let us know which officer
Okay.
they're going to.
Brooklyn, have you been appointed a certain role yet? I don't think they have yet. Have they? Oh, you have? Okay.
I am Dante Domini. I'm a senior at Dickinson High School, and I'm serving as the vice president.
Braylon? Not here. Parker's not here. Truman?
My name is Truman Hamburger. I'm a senior at Dickinson High School.
Thank you. Emily?
My name is Emily Hirschfeld. I am the secretary of the Dickinson Commission, and I am a sophomore at Trinity High School.
Abigail?
Hi, I'm Abigail Linker. I'm currently a junior at Trinity High School.
Riley?
Hi, my name is Riley Meyer. I'm currently a senior at Trinity High School, and I'm serving as the president of the Youth Commission.
William?
Hello, my name is William O'Shields, and I am currently a sophomore at Trinity High School.
Journey?
Hi, I'm Tierney Yoder, and I am a sophomore at Dickinson High School, and I am the treasurer.
Augustine?
I'm Augustine Zettel. I'm a junior at Dickinson High.
Well, welcome all of you. We are very proud of you for standing up and being part of this great youth commission and taking on these roles as being the voice for the youth of our community. So again, thank you. We look forward to working with you, and it's a very exciting time in Dickinson.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Maybe we should have them come stand behind us and get a group picture.
Sure. More pictures. So
So should we
get-
get a photo op?
we didn't get them. We should copy it.
I think we sit and they can just stand behind us.
Perfect.
What do you guys think?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just kind of scooch in maybe?
Welcome, ladies.
I'm gonna.
Can you squeeze
Scoot in
through,
here.
Scott?
Sneak back in there.
There we go. There we go.
You guys did pretty good. Oh, not so much.
Yeah.
Okay, can you just look right here for a second? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Anybody
All right.
else?
All right.
Op is over.
All right. Now, off to work. Thank you so
Congratulations,
much.
you guys.
Our next timetable item is at 5:15, so we'll move into our E discussion, which is the Chapter 4 discussion on the Chapter 4 changes or revisions. City Attorney Winko, if you would like to start the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners. Before you, you have a copy of the ordinance relating to Section 4, or Chapter 4, excuse me. This is the same version that was discussed at the work session. So I just want to go through this with you for purposes of direction, but more of an affirmative direction. We did discuss it at the work session, but again, that's not a definite vote for the direction that we're going to go here. So just for purposes of clarity for the commission as well as, you know, the individuals in the public that are interested in this particular topic, I just want to go through this with you, get some yays or nays, and then what I envision would happen is I will bring this back for the first official reading, essentially, which will be the public hearing with those comments incorporated. There may also be additional comments down the road, but for most part, I think it's important that we walk through this so that you are aware of what's being changed as well as the public for those who have concerns. So with that being said, with regard to the definition section, in the event that you decide which way you might go with the beer on sale, or excuse me, beer off sale license, if you create another license, some of those definitions will come out. So that's just a clerical thing at that point. Based on the recommendations of staff, I did go back in and add a couple definitions. Those are highlighted in yellow, so you can see those changes that were made. For the most part, I don't envision any wild and crazy changes with the definitions. Did add a couple, as you can already tell. Then we go down.
Ms. Winko, on the definitions of the beer and wine off-sale license, the L, contained within that is the convenience store, gas station, or grocery store. I think at least the way I thought the intent was only gas station.
Yep, and that will get to the further discussion as we get down the line. If that's the intent that the commission wants to go, then all references to the other two would be removed, if that's your intent.
Okay. Do we want to have that discussion now on that actual definition?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we had discussed at the work session, that we wanted to make sure that convenience stores was not included because that's such a broad definition.
Or grocery stores.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, so those, if that's the collective will of the group, then yes, those two definitions would be removed because at that point they would not be necessary.
Okay.
So those two would just strictly come out.
Okay. Well, we'll let you proceed then.
Okay, then we get to the point where we're talking about the license classes. That's section 408030. If there's any questions or concerns about the additional definitions or parameters that were included for those various licenses, you'll let me know. But for the most part, those are just clarifying and adding to and simplifying to some degree, but also making it easier to read in a lot of respects for those particular definitions. So if you have any questions on that, please let me know.
Distillery is just solely based upon North Dakota Century Code?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And then getting to section 408060, this is where we're talking about the license requirements and classifications. Nothing is changing in this section except I removed the bidding process requirement from that subsection A, and that has been made its own separate section because, in my opinion, it's easier to read, it's easier to follow. Other than that, no changes were made to the Class A licenses requirements. And the lodge and club license, the motel license, the restaurant on-sale license, none of those requirements changed, except I broke them out. I made them easier to read based on what the existing requirements already were in the code as it stands. Same thing with military club and beer license, and added additional language for the microbrewery pub license, because in that current code, there is no definition whatsoever for that particular license. Also, on the beer and wine concession license, added that definition as well. Currently, there isn't one in the current version of the code. The distillery license was also added. As far as the definition is concerned, again, Mr. Mayor, that is based pretty much on Century Code. The brewer taproom license, again, that was also defined in our current code. There is no definition for that license. And then domestic winery also added, again, no current definition. But then we get down to subsection K, which is the beer and wine only on-sale license. This was a topic of discussion for the commission for a while. This was previously beer only, and based on further, more recent conversations, this has been amended to include beer and wine only on sale. Couple of points for the concern for the public. This is a requirement of the licensee holder that the establishments with these licenses are requiring that their employees are the ones that are doing the distribution of the beverages. And then we get to the subsection L, which is strategically placed at the very end. In the event that the commission does decide it does not want to go in that direction, it can be easily removed. This is the license addition that would allow for beer and wine only off sale. Initially, it was drafted for a convenience store, gas station, and grocery store based on the Century Code. When we talked about it at the work session, there was a common theme, I believe, for the majority of the group, that would be limited only to gas stations. What I would want to see, if that is the direction the commission goes, is affirmative yes. We would revise that to limit that only to gas stations, and also to the Century Code does require, in the event that a license is issued pursuant to that chapter, that there are very specific delineation requirements that are set. The way that I've drafted that particular section is those Century Code requirements are listed and identified in that code section. You guys did also discuss the possibility of adding certain license requirements as far as limiting the number that could be issued to a particular chain. So if you do want those types of limitations, I would like essentially an affirmative yes, and to give us some idea as far as the number. I think you threw out the number 2 last time. And so that would be the requirements that we would like to see there, if that is, again, the direction that you would like to go. The rest of the code sections are cleanup items for the most part. And when we get to the very end, where it talks about the event alcoholic beverage permit, we did, based on discussions with staff, add a provision that requires only a licensee holding an on-off sale license, which is a Class A license, may apply for a special event permit. That has been an issue that the city staff has faced on a couple of occasions, so we think it's imprudent that we just make it very clear from the outset that that is a requirement of only the Class A licenses. And then the rest of the changes with regard to the Sunday alcohol beverage permit, those are changes that we're seeing, and as well as the license permit based on the recent legislative changes for the Century Code. So I guess the major question that is for this commission this evening is with regard to that potential addition of the off-sale license, which would be classified under the current revision as Class L. If the commission is desiring to go in that direction, we will make those changes. If the commission decides not to go in those directions, I would remove that, and then that would be coming forward for you as a first reading at the public hearing at the next meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Winko. Any
Staff,
questions?
Yeah, is staff making any recommendations on annual renewal fees or application fees for these classes of license? I mean, prior to this, we had just a beer only, I think, but now adding wine, are we looking at changing what that fee is for that class?
It's possible, Commissioner Frederick, we didn't really get into the whole, kind of nuts and bolts of the fee schedule, but if the commission felt it prudent, considering you are expanding that particular class, it seems to me logical that the commission could certainly look at requiring or having or increasing that annual license fee. It would be something that would have to be done at the beginning of an annual renewal, of course, but possible.
Okay. That hits on my next question.
Why don't we hold that right now? Because we got a 5:15. Yeah, hold that question, that line of thought. So 5:15, it is the time for the public to come forward on our timetable, public hearing, and public comments that are not on the agenda. If you have an item that you wish to come forward and talk to that was not on the agenda this evening, it's a concern of yours for the commission to hear, or if you just have an item that you want to hear the commission, hear it out with the commission, please come forward, state your name, and let us hear your concerns or questions. Anyone from the public? If you're watching on YouTube, you can dial in at 701-456-7006.
The conference is currently empty. You will hear silence or music.
Again, if anyone has any questions for the City Commission or concerns, please come forward, state your name, and let us know your comments. Anyone from the public? And if you're watching online, 701-456-7006. Anyone from the public? Hearing no one online and seeing no one in the audience has any comments, I'll close that section. Back to Mr. Frederick's question on the fee change because of the expansion of the class.
Yeah, and then my next question was, with these changes, I mean, we're going to try to make this effective January 1 because of all the renewals and some licenses will be changing. I mean, do we really want people applying for these new licenses before the end of the year?
I would guess I would defer to Ms. Carlson on when those renewals will go
Well, I
out,
think they're all
when they would get paid.
They're already in, the renewals for this year, if I'm correct, Ms. Benstock, but they're already in, I'm reviewing them. And so I would suggest that maybe we start on the first of the year, but also we will be coming forward with the fee schedule at the next work session. So at that time, if there is any changes there you want to add or delete for the commission, that would be the time to start it as of January 1, if that helps.
I would agree with Commissioner Frederick that since there is an expansion in that from beer to wine on sale, that fee needs to be looked at.
I concur.
And then we can discuss that on, but I think that the things that we talked about in the work session before that we need to clarify so Mrs. Winko can put this together for the public hearing is, I wrote down 4 things, but there might be more if commissioners. One, the actual fee for the license. And the suggestion before that had come up is because of Mandan's, their fee was $40,000. I would suggest because of the increased amount of traffic and everything that we're going to take on, that ours be set at 50. Now that's open for discussion. The other item was how many can a franchise hold? There's only a few franchise gas stations in town, Senex probably being the largest with 3 stores. I still think we should stay at, if we do move forward with this, that 2 is the most that any
That would
franchise.
include like ownership, right?
Right.
And ownership groups.
Yeah, I think ownership is.
Ownership too. Yeah. And then, of course, the yes, 2.
Yeah, we talked about that at the work session, just to keep uniformity with the different license classes.
And then the clarification that it is gas station only, no convenience, no grocery stores, unless the commission wishes other than that. And that means that by definition, they would have to sell gas, being a gas station. So, and then my 4th one, and I don't think this was brought up, is right now with Class A, if you sell your business, it goes with the business. My question on this one would be, how does it transfer? Does it go with the business?
Well,
we get into that again?
Even with the Class A, they have to file,
I know they still have to file, but.
Well, they have to ask for a transfer. I mean, we don't have to grant it, you know.
Well, we don't have to, but have we ever turned one down?
No.
Okay. So.
Not that I know of, anyway.
We've never turned one down, as long as I've been here. So, that'd be my question then, would be the transfer, and then I guess I have a 5th, is how will we set up the delineation? Because there are many variations of delineation in this state. I know what Century Code says, but I was in a gas store yesterday. It is basically, it was a cooler sitting beside another cooler full of pop. So it's not like it's separate like the Oasis in Bismarck, where you have to go into a separate spot, or the Senex in Bismarck that I've seen.
I think Super Pumper is a good example locally. I mean, like.
Right,
in
the
Delkit,
separation.
Where they've got delineation that is clear.
Right, and I think that's where we need to be, is like that. But I was it's a small town gas station, but the pop cooler, beer cooler right beside it.
I believe Senex and Richardson's the same way.
Right.
Yep.
And Mr. President, the Century Code, does require a wall to be designated in between the licensed portion and the non-licensed portion. And I believe the process in the past that's worked well with some of the most recent applicants with this, that will get run by the Dickinson Police Department to work through that process as it's being constructed. So Captain Ciani and the other individuals have a really good hand in working with the applicant to make sure it meets those requirements.
I would say they'd have to submit a site plan, just like any other revision.
They do, Mr. President, it's required.
Yeah.
When we've put some pretty hefty restrictions on some of the gas stations that have liquor stores now on the delineation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we want to be any less.
Same,
Yeah, I agree.
same
I agree.
principle.
Right. So,
although they have a different license, obviously, but.
right. I guess then we go back to discussing what the license fee would be.
I have some other questions on this.
Okay.
Are all, like, if we would approve for gas stations to sell beer and wine, are all tellers in a gas station 21? Because you do have to be 21 to sell alcohol, right? Or not?
I thought it's 18. They
Oh, it's
serve
just
it,
18.
right?
I believe it's 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
As long as
like,
they don't serve hard alcohol. They serve hard
so someone 21 or over would have to be present on site? Or what does direct supervision mean? Like, their supervisor's on the phone at home? Okay. And we don't have that listed anywhere in here. Is that a North Dakota Century Code thing, or is that something, where would that be drawn from? Okay, so we don't need that in our code because it's in the Century
It's
Code.
in here somewhere.
It is? Okay.
Bar servers or something, I thought.
Yeah, this is,
It's not in this
yes.
part, but.
These are the revisions.
Yeah.
So,
But we have it in our codes in some area.
Okay.
I think we just changed that, right? Because like a couple years ago.
Correct,
Because we had
yes.
it at 21 or something, yeah. A year ago, maybe.
Yeah, and then the delineation wall was going to be my other question, but you've talked about that clearly. So my questions for now are answered.
Any other?
Mr. President, I guess I do have a couple questions
Okay.
based on your, for additional direction. So what we can do with regard to the fee for license, I do have it identified in some of the other provisions, but I will add a paragraph or a provision that just says that that fee will be set by the city's fee schedule so that we don't have to modify the ordinance every time that you may decide to change that. So that probably, in the event that you do decide to go that direction, that fee schedule question probably is going to be more apt for the fee schedule discussion, if you do decide you want to have it then. Also, too, with the number per licensee, for clarification on that, will there be, is it the commission's intent that there will not be a restriction of the number of licenses, but, so for example, any gas station could have a license except for those that have multiple locations? We're not going to say that we're only going to limit, there's going to be 15
Right.
of these licenses, but there could be 20 licenses, but a licensee having more than one location only gets 2.
I think there's 19 gas stations I counted. I mean, in town,
Around that, yeah.
19.
Mr.
There's
Cracknell,
chains, the chain Lucky's, they already have liquor license, so you can remove those 2. The Cenex has 3. There's Tiger Discount. The only other multiples that I know of would be the Hub, which owns West Dakota and the Hub.
Yep.
So, but everybody else I think is sole. Yeah, Simonson's has 2. Yeah, thank you. So,
I mean, how definitive, I mean, so if it's the same LLC or
Well, I
if
think
it's 2 different LLCs with different ownerships, I mean, how does that?
I guess it's going to depend on how closely you want to treat it like you would treat the Class A license holder, because they have very strict requirements as far as, you know, the information that they have to provide as far as who owns what ownership. If the intent is that you're going to follow that example, then that's fine. I just want to make sure that when we draft this, we've got the direct intent that, you know, if it's unlimited for amount of gas stations that may want it, that's fine. I just want to make sure that if we're going to set parameters that certain gas stations can only have 1 if there's a chain, then I need to make that very specific when we go to make these amendments.
I think it's based on ownership, and I think you treat them like the Class A. Like that there are certain stipulations regarding, whatever stipulations we have in terms of ownership and licenses for Class A, I think you have to transfer that to this one, if it passes.
So that's my next question. I mean, I've made it pretty clear I'm not in favor of adding a class. So are we gonna take a vote to add this, or are we just gonna wait till the ordinance comes out?
Well, I guess the question would be, that's the number one question. The ordinance needs to move forward as far as the other clarification issues. So if you do decide that you don't want to go in that direction, that's completely up to you. Either we move it forward and then that part of it gets taken out as we adopt the ordinance. That's your choice. It really makes no difference from the drafting perspective, but if you do decide to take a vote this evening as far as whether you want to add a license, then I would know that moving forward, and it would just come out of the draft ordinance that gets presented.
I think we need to wait. We need to wait until we have this draft, open it up for public comments,
Yeah,
so
I
the
agree.
individuals are here to make public comments. Tonight, we're hashing out the details.
Yeah, I agree.
And then,
But so if I'm okay with everything else in the ordinance, but I'm not okay with adding a class, then my vote would be no?
No, well, I mean, you would make a motion that night on first reading along those lines, wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't we just
Cut out L?
Why wouldn't we just get it out of the box right now?
because we're not having, I
If we want to add the license or not, that's all we're going to vote on. And then we'll vote on the ordinance first reading next meeting. It's the only vote that we're going to take.
The item, the license actually isn't defined.
Oh, so you're talking about just adding
Yeah,
that
I mean,
L
just a
class.
general term, if we're okay with that, adding beer and wine off sale only.
I'm with President Decker on this one. I think it's important to have the public comment and first reading in order for us to make that decision.
Based on those comments then, Commissioners, what I will do is make those edits, then that will come back to you for final review prior to the public hearing and comment. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. If you intend to again make it more restrictive with regard to the Class A license, you're going to see a little bit more revisions in there because I'm going to have to beef it up a little bit to make that fit. And then the rest of those revisions, again, are some typographical and some are just for clarity. So I don't envision any other changes other than what we just discussed.
Mrs. Winkle, I do have another question that is not related to the new class or whatever, but you talked about special event permits.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at the Class G license, the beer and wine concession license. What prevents like a Dickinson State University or a Trinity Catholic schools that have established concession stands and have special events in those spaces from just applying for a beer and wine concession license?
Are you talking the beer and wine concession license that was just recently added that applies for the big sticks?
I mean, this one was only approved for the big sticks only, from my understanding. Are we changing that?
Yeah. It was. There was no definition for that particular license in the code as it currently reads. So what you're seeing in there is the brand new definition that did not exist before. So this one is required for, you have to be basically providing recreational activities for its patrons, such as including but not limited to sporting events, things of that nature. We can certainly expand the definition of that, but this is simply trying to clarify what was already permitted and allowed when that license was created.
I thought that we voted on a separate class just for the big sticks.
I think you did when you created the beer and wine concessions license, but there's nothing in the code currently says that it's strictly related or limited only to big
I thought
sticks.
we limited it to only the baseball park on the south side. That's what I thought.
I can tell you, when we had discussion, when we sat down and were looking at these codes, we didn't want to have specific businesses listed in here,
Yeah.
so we pulled that out at that time.
Yeah, 'cause I
So
thought it said big sticks.
it did say big
did,
sticks in the
yeah.
past code, which it would be standing code today because we haven't voted on this one yet. But I have to say that I may have been a leader on that in the sense I did not think we should have specific businesses listed. If either we have the license or we don't.
Well, I think, that was before you guys, but when that license was approved, that was specifically only for that reason. That I don't
Yeah.
believe it was ever to be any concession stand in town could get this license.
And I think we discussed removing that just for future event, if we do get something different, more facilities like that, then they can apply for that.
I mean, I guess, yeah, we would get, I suppose, a minor league hockey team or something. I
Right.
mean,
The softball complex potentially,
Right.
if there's a training facility or something like that, that would be a situation where the license would exist so it could be applied for. Other than that, if someone did come in, for example, the softball complex, if it was limited to big sticks, then we'd have to go back in, revise the ordinance, change it to allow that particular facility to get a license. If there's a concern that, this shouldn't be, or this should not be limited, or should be limited to certain facilities and not to, schools or something like that, we can certainly look at some of that, but we didn't want to limit it so much that we'd have to come back and change it if something in the future needed to be done.
I guess, because the point I'm making there is that, like, from the standpoint of making those special event permits only exclusive to the Class A licensees, it's, it might behoove somebody to say, hey, well, you know what, instead of having to work with a Class A license, we're just gonna apply for a beer and wine concession license. Because we have the concession stand established.
I mean, it's possible, Commissioner Oderman. I think considering the way that the code is written, I think somebody probably could have come in and done that anyway.
Yeah.
That's the way the current, code is
Sure.
written. So if you're concerned about that, then what I would essentially do is, say something to the fact that you can't use that particular license to circumvent,
Yeah.
a special event permit.
See, and I don't think
I don't think they could have though, because it specifically said it was approved for the big sticks only.
I think in the
what-
draft that I read, I don't recall seeing big sticks listed in there. I think the comment that I had sent said that this was related to big sticks, but I could be wrong.
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Sobolek. Since I've been on the commission, and we have the same tenure on the commission, we've talked about how we're not comfortable with that just being delineated for one business. And in this instance, it was the big sticks. And I don't think I'm concerned with that. I just thought it was something that we should talk about.
Well, it's the owner of an establishment providing recreational activities. So I guess your definition of recreational activities might vary, but it also says, but not, limited to sporting events. So
Well, because let's say we have a movie theater someday that wants to.
I'm just going to give you one example. I mean, men's league hockey.
Yeah.
They're gonna come in for one of these.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I was on the commission when we approved that. I mean, it was specifically for that purpose at that location.
But that was rushed to get them when that was coming.
Well, I know, but I don't know.
So all these different classes of licenses, my head spins thinking about who is all serving alcohol in town. Like, just any Tom, Dick, or Harry now. I mean, like, any stray kid that just got a job for, my parents only had to get a job, and so here, whatever, I'm going to sell you this, because I don't really care. And so, like, just all these, I don't know. I have severe concerns with just opening up to alcohol being sold everywhere. And maybe everywhere is an overstatement, but so many more places. And I really don't like having a single name on this, but maybe we do need to look at this beer and wine then and concession license and somehow limit it so it's worded differently.
I mean, it could be a franchise sport team, something to that nature.
You can be creative. That's.
I don't really care for it to say one business, but if it's, not, I agree, like, I've been a volunteer at the hockey concession stands before, and I can't imagine having to be the server trainee. We'd have to hire people. The hockey club, we'd just have to not have dibs and hire people, and then, now our dues go, it just creates
I don't know.
Well, but it's also, to a certain extent, you have to allow for people to run their organizations in a way, like the hockey club has a little bit of ownership, and like right now they're not doing that, but
well, they wouldn't be able to serve alcohol at a high school.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a little bit of a we have to trust people. We can't dictate every single line item, because our code book would fill this room if we were going to try to dictate every single thing that we might predict.
Commissioner Oderman, I think you're right. I think the opposite concern of that would be is when you're talking about the distribution of alcohol or beer or wine or whatever, there is a concern that to make sure that people are being properly carded, that it's being dispensed properly, that we're not over-serving. So with having organizations or entities that are doing that, they have people that are properly trained and carding and have the resources to do that, we get a little bit less strict in that regard when we're seeing other types of situations. So that would be my concern from an enforcement perspective, is maybe those safeguards are not being taken the best that they could be, and that would be a obviously concern.
Yeah, you don't have as much skin in the game as like Mr. Marsh here.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you just take softball. I mean, they lease those concession stands out to a third party. I mean, what's going to stop that third party leasee from coming in and requesting a beer and wine concession license for every softball game and every softball tournament every day of the week and on weekends in the summer? I mean, is that where we want to go? That's my question.
That's up to you, Commissioner.
Well,
I just drafted it.
I mean, that.
if your concern is how much beer gets consumed after softball games, I mean, it's.
Well, yeah, I know, but that's brought there by themselves, not being served. And that goes back to enforcement, everything. I mean, if that's your guys' wishes, let's put it up for a vote, but I just don't see that as being the way to go, so.
Well, and we still have ultimate oversight on whether or not that license gets granted.
But we need clear definition in our code to back us if we would not grant something.
Well, I mean, that exactly. We don't grant one concession stand a license and the other one we do. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going to have a pretty good explanation why.
Sure. And so, yeah, I feel like this one needs to, I would agree with tightening it up somehow. I still don't like stating one location, one business, but if we could make some kind of clarifiers on that.
I mean, I agree with the mayor. It was a rush through because Big Sticks got awarded to us at whenever that was a few years back. But, I mean, the discussion during those meetings was, it's for the Big Sticks games and Big Sticks games only, basically.
Yeah, because I mean, they don't serve them when you're at a Legion game or something.
No.
No.
Well, if the commission, wants to limit it to, as Commissioner Frederick indicated, some sort of, recognized sports franchise or something to that effect, we can certainly do that. That's not a problem.
Well, and so like, I guess you spoke to the point I was trying to make there, Commissioner Frederick, in regards to how Big Sticks, who holds the license there at the ballpark?
Well, the organization, and Dave Ouellette, I think, is I believe.
Yeah, so they're the leasee of the ballpark that holds the license. Okay.
Correct. So it's that ownership group, but they cannot move that license off that premise.
Yep.
They cannot use it to host, somebody hosting a wedding or a special event can't go to them and utilize that liquor license off the premise
Correct.
of the municipal ballpark. It stays there.
And to that, we could specify that it is with that franchise at that location.
Well, I mean, that's already stipulated.
Well,
Oh,
at
no.
a defined location.
Yeah.
So they'd have to define to us where there's, like it wouldn't be in the code, they'd have to tell us in their application. Does that make sense? So it's in their application where they can serve, but it's not sitting in our code.
I mean, Dickinson State can't, they're dry,
No,
right?
no, I just used them as an example of somebody that has an established concession stand that you could potentially dispense this out of. I don't think Trinity has any interest in it either. I just use them as another example of somebody that has an established concession stand. So, I mean, the hockey arena is probably a more realistic example.
Well, I mean, if they'd have a hockey team that came to play out, I mean, like this year, the Minotaurs played
Yeah, like-
whoever, like
if
at an
we got
event like
a
that.
team like the Bobcats or
Yeah,
something,
if we-
eventually. I mean,
Then-
but
And then they had it staffed,
but that's
not
a-
volunteer
like I said,
ran. It was,
that's a semi-professional franchise
yeah.
team.
But, yeah, I don't mind the recognized sports franchise at a defined location and somehow tying that into there. I feel like that keeps it to what you guys wanted as the original commission that voted on it, but it's not holding it to one entity.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to have their specific name on it, but.
Sorry I caused such a long conversation there.
I think it was a good conversation.
Um,
Thank you.
Mrs. Wenko, you've covered the allowable franchises by the recommendation of following the same standards that we adhere to a Class A.
Right, correct.
Okay, we're definition-wise, gas stations, no grocery, no convenience unless commissioners feel otherwise. Then I go to my fourth point, a transfer. Is it if a gas station sells, does that auto transfer with the gas station?
I would think it would be the normal process like we do with every license, right?
Correct. I think if
I mean, it would
intent
come
be
through
that-
application again.
Yeah.
Right, they would have to reapply, and then the city would, of course, have to accept the transfer and submit an application, and you run the same process as you normally would. It would run very similar and look very much like the Class A licenses in the event of a transfer.
And the delineation would be handled by Century Code.
Yep, and
standards.
Mr. President, that's already in there.
Right.
That's subsection 5 of 11, or excuse me, of L, what's in there. And then, of course, that does require, as part of the Century Code requirement, the applicant must submit a blueprint or diagram designating the area to the city as part of the application process.
And back to the point of what the license would cost, you said that would be determined by us in the fee schedule.
Correct. I think the easiest part would be for that is to identify in the code that initial license would be something that would be set by the city's fee schedule. So again, you don't have to worry about modifying the ordinance. I guess the question would become, is there an initial fee to get the license? And if so, what is that fee? And if there's an annual renewal fee, what is that fee?
Yes and yes.
So that would be what you would all.
Is
So
my
with
thinking.
With
So-
every license, there's an initial fee, right? No matter when you take it out, like if I come in for one of these licenses tomorrow, you pay whatever the renewal fee is the first time, and then it's only good till the end of the year. Am I correct on that?
The initial cost is up to like whatever, so if it's not say it's 3,000, so it's 250, and then prorated to the date it starts up in the year.
Okay.
And then it's 3,000 the next year.
So my feelings on this is yes, there should be an initial cost upfront.
Yes.
And like I said, I would propose $50,000. And then I would say the renewal fee should be $2,500, but that's up for discussion too, because the Class A is $3,000, right, Rita?
And that initial would be per location, right?
Per location, per license.
Has staff had a chance to compare that to any other municipalities?
I believe that we discussed it looking at the work session. I think Mandan is very similar. I don't believe I was able to pull up Bismarck's when we were sitting here last time. But other communities are doing them for that relatively same amount of price.
I'm just wondering.
And we can certainly.
I'm wondering, I mean, are some free or everybody has an initial fee? That's where I'm more concerned about what the initial fee is.
And I think what we can do when Ms. Carlson brings that back for the fees discussion, I can certainly gather that information along with Ms. Binstock and bring that back for that discussion on that particular time frame. And I think what we would do for the purposes of the ordinance is just simply say that any initial application fee would be set by the city's fee schedule as well as any renewal. That way, again, we don't have to change this.
I just want to be upfront that the only way I will support this is if there is that initial fee. That we pass this as having an initial fee, just like the Class A license.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
You know,
Yeah.
so Class A license now has gone to a bid war, and at one time, the Class A license, you just bought it. When the city initially had it, I don't know if Mr. Marsh is that old that he remembers that, when it was a nickel, right? Probably a nickel to get that initial license, but maybe not.
Much less expensive than it is now.
Right.
So was a beer.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not 75-cent well drinks anymore, is there? So. But I just want to be upfront with people too, that they're going to have, if they're leaning towards applying for one of these licenses, it's going to cost money. It's just not $3,000 or $2,500. Because there is going to be some additional time for our staff, additional time for police. So in the end, we will have to cover some of those costs with these fees. Any further discussion or questions for Mrs. Winko?
Mr. President, Mrs. Winko, would there be like a grandfathering in of those that already have the beer only? As this changes to like a beer and wine?
I believe what I would recommend is when they reapply, they're just going to apply for the new license. I don't envision that that's going to cause too much of a hiccup come next year, and for that, it would be a different story, I think, if the licenses were very similar, but they're just getting the opportunity to sell a different type of beverage.
Sure.
So I don't envision.
Unless we increase the fee.
For the next upcoming year. I think if the fees are already in, I think that's set. I mean, that's just is what
For
it
this
is.
year, yeah.
And then moving forward, there would be
Okay.
the increased fee.
How many beer only do we have? Do you know, Rita?
It's just a few.
More than I thought, actually.
Because a few restaurants have beer only.
Yeah, but they have a restaurant license.
Some
They
just
might.
have beer.
No.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Have only beer.
Coda Diner.
Coda Diner, okay.
Healthcare Cluton?
Just in glass.
Should we, this is getting crazy, but should we still have a beer only? Because I don't imagine we're gonna approve this beer and wine with the same fee.
Well, the beer only is just on sale there.
No, I'm talking the beer and wine on sale. We merged them together, but if we go to Just in Glass or one of those businesses that only have beer and now all of a sudden the fee's 2 times higher.
That's up to you and what
Yeah.
you decide you want to do on the fee schedule.
I guess I didn't realize we were gonna totally abolish the beer only, but.
But
That's all there was.
Just discussion. I mean, there's probably a handful of businesses that probably don't want the wine part of it, but.
I guess I wouldn't see it, I don't know if I would see the necessity to raise the fee.
Well. I don't know. I mean, we charge there's a big, I mean, what's the beer and wine restaurant license fee now?
Oh, just the beer and wine.
Yeah, the beer, that's the only one we have right now.
We don't have a beer and wine restaurant. We just have a regular restaurant, I think.
Oh.
Oh, the beer.
But it's only beer and wine.
Beer and wine.
No, a restaurant.
I thought we had a beer and wine restaurant only, or?
No.
I think beer and wine is the concession license is the only one we have
Are you,
today.
are you talking what was identified as subsection G, which is restaurant, beer, and wine?
Yeah.
I believe that's the one that we
That's
are
been
getting rid of
struck.
because.
I know, but what was the fee on that one? That's the one
Oh.
I'm talking about.
2,000.
Huh? And beer only is 700. And so now we're gonna do a new beer and wine that's gonna only be 700? Is that
Yeah.
what we're saying?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's not gonna work.
I think during our conversation, when we were reviewing it, we talked about increasing. Somewhere in the middle.
That's just the fee, right? Not the-
This is probably my 5th foray into this liquor license thing since I've been on this commission, so.
Jason, why didn't you get it right then?
Oh. I know one thing was just for limiting so I apologize. We had some discussions with Commissioner Walla, Mrs. Wanko, myself, and Mr. Winningham as we were working on some of this wording. And just to limit how many different licenses we had was the talk on how we were putting that together. So it wasn't, you can choose so many options. And so it was that one for that on sale versus, is it beer? Is it wine? Is it beer and wine? And just having one option to choose. And so that was something that I may just have come out of that work session. So that doesn't mean that has to be what we go with, but that was a conversation we had that day.
And I think it's important to have the mindset of, we can't control what we did in the past. We can't control what future commissions are going to do. We can only control what we do in the present here. And if we align, I mean, we have the right to align those fees accordingly if we feel that that's necessary. Like, maybe we feel like the fee schedule in the past was wrong. Maybe we feel it was just right, but we have the authority to be able to do that.
My personal opinion, I think we should just leave a beer only in there also, but for these businesses that already have them, I mean, the license is already there. And if nobody takes it next year, then I guess you can eliminate it, but.
Do you have enough direction to craft the actual license and the revisions to Chapter 4?
Yes, I do.
So that we can get something, what I would like to see is that we can have something printed out so the individuals here can, that have interest,
Sure.
can get some information so they can look at it
Sure. What we'll do is.
for the public hearing.
I'll provide that to Rita's in the normal course of business, and then, of course, if they want to request that from her, they certainly can, and we can certainly bring redline versions of the documents for the next public meeting if anyone wants to look at them.
President, I just have one question. We are in the background fees that we've already, for the 2022 liquor licenses. Do you think that the fee will change because they've already paid for the classes that we already have?
Well, if we can change it and.
I would just say that.
I think we grandfather, yeah.
Yeah.
Starting on new.
Right.
So next year in the fall, next year when they
Yeah.
use it, we'll have to.
Yes.
That's what I would think too.
What about like beer and wine? Is that
Well,
That's the one.
that's the discussion
specifically.
we're having right now, is what to do there.
Yeah.
I mean,
That way that will give them time. It wouldn't go into effect because they don't pay till, they've paid you already for this year. So it wouldn't go into effect till next year at least on the alcohol.
but
So,
they would be able to sell a line for another year?
right.
I don't know. It would go effective January 1st.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Because they've already paid their fees for 22. But if you change the class from beer only to beer and wine, they'll that want to gather up the wine. Now, what are you?
We could make that one specifically go into effective 2023.
Well, but if we're approving something, I think we can't wait a whole year for it to go into effect.
No, what Commissioner Frederick's saying is they're paying already for their beer, the $700 for this
Sure.
year. So if we change the class to beer and wine and change the fee, when does that go into effect? Say it goes from $700 to $1,200, so it's additional $500, right? We can make it that it does not go into effect until the 2023, just for that license.
Or if they opt to do wine, I suppose they would have to pay the difference. I don't know.
Or we just grant them the fee as it is that they already paid, but knowing that if they renew as is for beer and wine, then they have to pay the additional amount, the upcoming year.
That
keep it
seems the most
clean.
logical. I don't think I mean, the intent is not to act to do something to the detriment of the
Right.
business. So if they have gone through the process, they have paid the license fee based on what they thought it was going to be, because who knew that the city was going to change it? So if that is the direction, I think the prudent thing there would be to grandfather them in to some degree, say that they've paid it, and then when they go to renew, as Commissioner Wallace said, they are operating under the understanding that it would be based on the new renewal amount, whatever that may be. If for whatever reason the commission were to decide that they did want to have that separate beer only, beer wine, that's not a major change for me. That's basically they're going to look identical, except it's beer in one and beer and wine in the other. So that's up to you.
Going back to not to change the subject again, but beer and wine off sale. I mean, do any of the cities have some kind of proximity restrictions? Do you know? I mean, can 4 gas stations on one intersection all serve beer and wine? I mean,
I have not seen anything with regard to the limitation of that type of specific with, like I should say location. Certainly something if you wanted to consider it.
I was just curious if
I
there's
didn't see
any out
anything,
there.
no.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Good luck.
So, are we giving her direction to just this way and not having a beer option, or?
I mean, that's up to the rest of the commission.
Well, that was my point with deciding if everybody's in favor of the beer and wine off sale licenses. I mean, we're going to draft this, and what if it doesn't pass? Then we start over again, or?
We would just pass it with those amendments.
Right.
Okay, so.
And L would just drop off if we went to pass that.
Correct. And I specifically strategically placed it at the very end, so in the event that it doesn't move forward, I can just delete it and it's not going to affect the whole formatting of everything else. So if you wanted to go with a beer only, I would make that the beer and wine only would become L, and then the beer and wine only off sale would become the next letter. So
M.
it's not that big of a deal for me to make those changes drafting wise.
Any other comments, questions? You have enough direction to draft it, or?
What I will do is, for purposes of clarity, is I will add, like I said, I can add that in there. I would just like to know if that's what you want to do, because if it is, then I'll add it in there. If you guys decide you don't want to do it, I'll just take it out when we get to the point of modifying and adopting the ordinance. It's not that.
Commission, do we want a beer only and a beer and wine only? Yay or nay?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I can't say I've heard too much on either of those, but I don't disagree with Jason that if nobody buys the beer only, if everyone goes to the beer and wine, it's easy enough to just get rid of that in the future.
Okay, then add it. So this will become M then.
Okay.
So. For those in the audience that I wanted to have something so that you could actually see what we're going to vote on rather than some ambiguous ordinance that did not have exact details. So.
I think this is a good procedure.
Right.
Even for future things, to have this discussion here where we can
I agree.
make changes and then have the first reading after that, because sometimes,
Yeah.
especially these big ones like this, to only hear it twice is not even enough.
Right.
We've discussed this so many times, and there's just so many facets of how it can impact so many different places, and so it's good to have more discussions on it.
Okay. Further? So the first hearing and public comments will be at our next meeting. we'll have it by then?
Yes.
Okay, it will for sure have it. So we'll have an actual document that you guys can look at. So,
It'll be a public.
it'll be a public hearing, first reading and public hearing.
So there's still changes we can make.
Yeah, we can make changes after that, so. And then we can always have a public hearing on the second one too, so it's not exclusive. So. But it will be a first reading with a public hearing, so. Yep. All right, our next item, we'll move into public safety. We have the fire department.
Thanks, President Decker and Commission. I'm before you this evening to present the October report for the fire department. Just as a reminder, these are the services we do provide to the community. We responded to 62 calls for service in the month of October, which puts us at about 645 calls for the year, which is a 25% increase from last year, and which has been the theme of the entire year. We continue to see an increase. This time last year, we ran about 50 calls. We're up to 62. So we continue to see an increase in our call volume. And that really breaks down to EMS calls. We're seeing a significant increase there with just currently what's going on in the world. False alarms comes in second. We're getting a lot of false alarm calls, whether that's intentional kids pulling pull stations, setting off the alarm, or just systems going off every time we get a little bit of bad weather. And then we did see quite a few fires this month as compared to months in the past. Calls by station, it stays pretty consistent. The majority of our calls are happening south of town or in the station that's south of town's district, but it's been pretty consistent over the year. Here's a heat map of where our calls are occurring for the month of October. They're pretty sporadic all over the place, but as you can see, as illustrated in this, a lot of it's south of the freeway.
Hey, Chief, there's two kind of significant hot spots there. Can you kind of just explain that there? I mean, that one on the north end by Highway 22 and then the one right off of East Villard there?
The one on the north end is, we had a couple of fire alarms there. That hot spot, it looks a lot hotter than what it is. It's probably 2 calls.
Okay.
And the other, I believe, was a med call to one of the facilities that we do consistently run to.
Okay.
That we had multiple calls there.
Thank you.
And then our response times, we were able to cut down our response times from Station 1 about 46 seconds. And then for Station 2, it was a whole whopping 8 seconds this month, which can make the difference realistically. But we are working extremely hard on bringing those response times down to get down with the national requirement. Training hours, we put in about 475 training hours over various topics. This month we kind of focused a lot on hazmat to get that annual requirement out of the way. That does put us at about 5,000, almost 6,000 training hours for the year. We're about 90% complete of what's required of us to maintain our ISO Class 3 rating. So we're right on track to finish the year off pretty strong. And then I just included a slide with some community events that we attended. We did the Trick or Trunk. This month was Fire Prevention Week, so we were out in all the elementary schools presenting to all those classrooms and to a lot of the daycares, and then we did a lot of station tours. And then we did do our annual neighborhood visits. That's the top right. And then Fire Prevention Week truck tours, the bottom right. And with that, I would answer any questions that you have.
Chief Personnel, any questions for fire department?
Mr. President.
Mr. Arterman?
Chief, the EMS calls, is that something that you guys have traditionally had pretty high numbers on?
Commissioner, traditionally, no. We are seeing a really big increase. I believe the ambulance system is seeing a huge increase, and they're relying a lot heavier on the fire department to assist with that. They're getting a lot of stack calls where they're already out on a call and we may have to respond, or a lot of transfers between here and Bismarck where they're out, or they have multiple ambulances out and then we are the first response. Or if it is a very critical call, say a CPR, we do respond to those to assist, because the more people, the lot easier it is to work that type of call.
Okay. So I mean, you would say that like our ambulance service in Dickinson is relatively taxed at this current time?
I would say it's extremely taxed. We're consistently seeing stack calls, ambulances out, and I mean, they are 100% meeting their requirement with the state for ambulance service, but they are extremely taxed. They're running calls all day long.
And then just a comment, I was looking at this community events slide here. Picture in the bottom right, that's a great mustache on that fighter. Yeah. You guys have great facial hair there in the fire department.
We do appreciate that. Not that I have that, but yes, he does have an excellent.
Take some notes.
All right, any other questions for the fire department? Hearing none, thank you, Chief Personnel. We'll move into engineering. We have the Crooked Crane Trail Phase 2 design. Interim City Engineer Marshik will be handling that.
Thank you, President Decker, Commissioners. For your consideration is a professional service agreement with SRF Consulting Group for the next phase of design work on Phase 2 of the Crooked Crane Trail. This phase of work includes preliminary trail design, hydraulics, some permitting, and preliminary structural design. The outlined tasks in this agreement are to perform a 60% level of design to be coordinated and reviewed by BNSF to establish approval of the proposed improvements and be given final plan design. In our discussions with BNSF, that is the requirement that they had set for us, is to have 60% design plans to review. These include ongoing project coordination with BNSF, the Department of Water Resources, surveying, trail design, hydraulics, modeling, CLOMAR application, a wetland delineation, cultural report, design memo, preliminary retaining wall design, and preliminary right-of-way work. This agreement will be compensated on an hourly basis with a not-to-exceed amount of $152,401. City engineering staff is recommending approval. Do you have any questions for me on this professional service agreement?
Thank you, Mrs. Marshik. I guess I do. I see figure 3 in the map here that was provided to us.
Yes.
The indication on there is what? They want us to modify those, shut those down? What is?
The agreements that we've had all along are to shut one crossing down, which at a previous meeting, we had asked for your approval on that, and we had submitted that to BNSF. The 2 other crossings have always been on the table as requiring improvements to come up to meet BNSF standards. However, both of them are difficult because of how they've been developed. And so there's some work that we have to do with BNSF to come to some kind of compromise between their normal standards and what we can physically accomplish with what's already developed. So some of the SketchUps that we have provided previously have been something that SRF had worked on for us in around 2013 to 15 for a quiet rail project. They had done some preliminary design and looking into those same crossings, and that's all we've shared with BNSF at this point until we get more buy-in from them.
So That's my next question. So are these improvements are we working on Quiet Rail at the same time?
No, we are not at this time.
Why not? While we have their ear, why aren't we, I mean, if we're gonna have to improve these crossings, wouldn't we approve them so we can get Quiet Rail, or?
I think that's something we definitely look at, but that hasn't been part of our discussions at this time to move forward with a Quiet Rail designation through Dickinson.
So what they requiring us, what we would be required to do for Quiet Rail?
Probably, but we haven't even gotten into those discussions, Commissioner Frederick. As far as staff, there is some other funding sources out there for at-grade crossings that have some concerns. And so as we move forward with the trail, we want to make sure that we're on track to move forward with the NSF with this route. Then those requirements will come, and as those requirements for those crossing updates come, we can dig into that more. And there is some other funding alternatives out there to help us with improving those crossings. And if that, at that time, is something that we want to pursue, we definitely can look at pursuing Quiet Rail.
Anybody else? Is it just me, or?
No, I'm with you, Commissioner Frederick. I do see a little bit of maybe a good convenience to the fact that we're having these conversations with them right now, and we're at the table with them. Why not discuss it? Like, it just, you know, just to remove the need for, you know, a conversation somewhere down the line, at least open the door and see what kind of response we get.
And maybe we visit with the SRF and see. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously they've done some work on this before for the Quiet Rail project, so.
The requirement, does that generally fall upon the city then to install the Quiet Rail?
I believe so.
Well, it's crossing updates, right?
Yes.
That's all it is.
And
Well, I
so-
thought there was like arms and all that.
Well, I'm sure these crossing updates are gonna include.
I think that might
Okay.
come into play, is that to do the Quiet Rail requirements will probably come with a price tag.
But I would imagine what they're having us do already is gonna be pretty close to what they would want.
You know, preliminary discussions were pretty basic, but those discussions happened over probably 2 and 3 years now at this point. And so until we get to that discussion, I don't know what they're going to do for us as far as compromise. You know, the one crossing by the livestock exchange is extremely difficult just because of the close proximity and requirements that they have for medians. It doesn't really function with how the access is into the livestock yards and base food trailers. So there's going to have to be some definite design compromises from their standards. And, you know, maybe it does make it easier if we're doing more upgrades so that we can do Quiet Rail.
Well, somebody signed off at one point at BNSF on allowing base fluid to build the way they did.
I would imagine so.
So I guess having that discussion and getting the Quiet Rail it wouldn't hurt. I'm sure there will be some additional cost. I mean, I don't doubt that one bit, because those arm functions are completely different than just the basic arms.
Well, in the past, we thought we could make it a private crossing there because it would relieve us of the requirements. However, at that point, they'll be able to park a train across that crossing, and then we're just blocked. So from our standpoint, it didn't seem like a viable option to go that route,
It wouldn't be a good route.
especially on sale day. So we can sure bring up these discussions, and we'll see how that progresses and what kind of suggestions or what they're going to want to see, since we're finally getting a chance to have these conversations with BNSF. It's good direction for staff to hear that that's something that you're interested in seeing.
Okay. Any other questions on this task order? Not, I'd look for a motion on the task order with the SRF Incorporated.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Oderman,
Second.
second by Commissioner Walla. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item up is winter operations, be presented by Public Works. First item presented by Operations Manager Clem and Chief Street Maintenance Operator Weiner. Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. President. We put a little slide together, just kind of overview our winter operation maintenance. Here in the city of Dickinson, we have 368 line miles. We currently have 13 street department, which is a little skewed. We've actually lost one of our members. He went back to the oil and gas business. So it's a little skewed on the lane miles per employee as well at 18.3. 13 employees is a little shy of what we have. We're a little smaller than a bunch of other cities, but we do have additional assets that we use. Solid waste comes and helps us, water utilities. So depending on the severity of the storm, if we need to call them in, they come over and help us out. Training, we put the new operators and the veterans through training every season. And Daryl does a very good job at the training since he's been doing it for quite some time. What we do is we bring them in to a classroom setting. We review all the snow and ice controls, the basics of what they're doing, the material using and selection of the material. Operating techniques and guidelines is what really comes in handy of how to remove the snow and the ice off the streets the safest way, the most productive way. Communications is talked quite a bit about it, safety. And then we talk about what we're using for the brine. And one of the things that we picked up in our winter maintenance conference that we went to is the city of Fargo up there. They're using another product besides beet juice. It's called AMP. And the cost is they lower their overall cost on their material quite a bit because they can it costs a little bit more per gallon, but it covers 40 to 50% more. So we're actually looking at that. We're going to try a little bit of it this year just to see if it could help us reduce some of our costs for next year. One of the things that we go over in this training also are plow routes. Over the last year we didn't have a lot of snow, so it was somewhat easy for my first year. But a lot of calls we get is residential. When you're going to do our residential. Our first priority is our level 1s and 2s, which you'll see coming up in the next slide. We review our public works document here. This is what we go over with all of them. This is our graph of, if it's a bad winter, bad snowfall, a lot of ice, it basically is a flow chart of what to do. And Daryl, you can chime in here anytime.
Okay, I will. This is the flow chart helping our operators decide if anti-icing is appropriate. Anti-icing is where we go out before the storm hits and we put down a brine product on the road. So when the snow starts falling, it keeps it from sticking to the road. It turns it into slush, so traffic and plows can get it off the road quicker. We've used it successfully in the last few years. There are areas in town we don't really dare do it. For example, out on the bypass, because if there's snow drifting across the road, the old ground drifting that we have once in a while in North Dakota, if we anti-ice, it'll actually create ice with that. So there are specific times we can and can't use it. Then this is our product use guide. It's the beginning point, helping our operators, they'll compare the pavement temperature, the weather conditions, precipitation, and it's a starting point for them to decide what product to use. This comes in handy, the guys that are on call or the guys that are on the early shift during the winter, they don't have to call one of the supervisors to find out what to use.
Right. And basically over here on the, it's a little small, sorry, tells you the temperature degrees, what to use, what to pick, what to select out there on our brine making unit. Then we flow into our, this is our route maps that we have that's in all of our plow trucks, all of our equipment that we use for snow removal.
The upper right portion is a blown up portion. You recognize, you can see it's the western part of town. And that kind of gives you an idea that our level 1 and level 2 routes, the routes are designated in dotted lines on the map to help the operators figure out where to go. We also have a text version of it. So if they're sent out on Plow Route 4, they can either look on this map or they can read the text version to help them figure it out. The overall map there of the whole city, each of those colored sections is the residential route. So if we have enough snow that we need to plow residential, we look at how much snow is in each part of town. Northwest part of town gets a lot because of the prevailing winds, so we may start there. The other option, or the other thing we have to look at, is what day of the week is it? If it's on a Monday, the Tuesday solid waste routes have to get out there the next day. Right. So we're going to send out our plows to the route that's going to be plowed or hauled the next day. So, but that's the areas. If the operators are given a certain route to go to, that's where they go. And then this is a portion of the guidelines we have for snowplow operators. So everybody is on the same page. Like, you start plowing at the middle and you put it to the edge. Other than if you can get most of it to one side. It outlines where they can and can't put the snow according to our ordinance and our policies and all the other things, so it helps them out. And we also give a copy of that to the contractors that help us so they can plow to the same standards we use.
And then as this is just, this is our snow priority routes, basically kind of just iterate what Daryl was saying. You'll see, I mean, it's small, I apologize for that, but you'll see our main level 1s and 2s, they're all dotted lines. So they can look at it, especially with the newer operators that we have. They come in, they know what to hit, how to do it. And any questions at any time, they can always refer back to this. Level 1s and 2s are our priorities first. A lot of citizens call in a little upset with this, but then once we explain to them, it's keeping our emergency routes open for our fire and police department, getting to the hospitals and all that kind of stuff. Then they kind of, oh, thanks, they appreciate it.
And
Mr. Clem, is that on our website?
Yes,
So,
it is.
so somebody can pull that up?
On the city website,
Okay.
if you get to the street department, it has links to all these maps.
Okay.
Yes.
And,
So we can direct people to that if they
yes.
call and. Okay.
And that priority
Yes, sir.
route, it's tough to see on this, but the level 1 routes are in red and outlined in yellow. The level 2 routes are in blue, outlined in yellow.
Right.
And that doesn't show up too good because it turns out to be a greenish
color.
But it divides the city into sections, so nobody should have to drive more than a half mile at the most to get to one of the priority routes.
Correct.
And most area of towns are a lot less than a half mile.
Correct. And then the beautiful thing, as we're doing all the equipment and moving the snow and all this, our tracking, all of our snow removal equipment has our AVLs in them. And basically, as it's blown up here, you'll see the blue, the purple, there's a couple of green in there. Those are the different colors of each piece of equipment. And then basically over here on the right-hand side, it gives you the equipment number, where they're at, how fast the piece of equipment is traveling, how much he's deploying out on the street, whether it be brine, sand, whatever we're putting down at that point.
And also with the AVLs, we've got the capability of having a route completion up.
Yeah, oh.
Out at Public Works, we'll have it up live out there. Mr. Winningham has access to it. The Police Dispatch Center has access to it. If any other officials want access to it, we can give it to you. That way, in real time, you can see what we're plowing. It starts out with all the streets in the city being red. As the plows cover them, they turn green. So looking at that map, you can watch our progress. The completion software isn't updated as good as it could. The company is working on it right now. The first time a plow crosses it, it's going to mark it green, even though it requires 4 to 6 passes. They're working on updating it so we can put in how many passes it takes before it'll actually turn green. But that way, everybody can see what's happening and where everybody's at.
And when you pull up the AVLs on the computer, it's actually pretty neat. You can actually see the piece of equipment moving as it's going. It updates every, is it every 5 to 10 seconds?
Right now, we switched to an unlimited data plan, and every piece of winter equipment reports every 30 seconds.
30 seconds. And then one of the things that really helped us out last year is just, reminding the responsibilities of homeowners and business owners are, city codes, snow removal. Hopefully, we don't have too many people dispensing their snow in the middle of the streets again this year. We did have a couple issues in the past. But the one that really helped us out last year, really appreciate Dusty and his team, the campers, the boats, the trailers that are out there. It does make it hard to get the roadways open, without going back if we got campers in there. So from November 1 to March 31st, they can't be on the streets. I don't believe there was any citations, Dusty, that you handed out last year, so it really helped. And this is just a reminder that we try to get out to everybody. Then also our, public outreach, depending on the snow events, the majority, how major or severe they are. We have our city websites. We use the Facebook. We use the Dickinson Work app, and local media. And then we, coordinate with dispatch. If schools are shut down, all that kind of good stuff, depending on the severity of the storm.
I guess it's my turn to kind of step in, but before I go to this part of it, we did have a good meeting with the schools.
Yes.
And kind of answered some questions about how they plow their snow and how we, excuse me, need to plow our windrows and coordination with them. I think that helped a lot to answer a lot of questions that the schools had. And again, we want to present tonight. If anybody has questions, please contact us on how we do our operations and the improvements that we've tried to bring forward. In this slide, the City of Dickinson Street Division of the Public Works Department was presented with the Excellence in Snow and Ice Control Award from the North Dakota chapter of American Public Works Association for their commitment and improvements in operations and environmentally responsible methods of controlling snow and ice. The awards committee reviewed a 19-page form detailing the winter operations with Dickinson deemed deserving of the award. Myself, Mr. Clem, and Mr. Weiner were presented the award at the North Dakota Water Pollution Control Conference in Fargo on October 3rd. Shown above are Dan Hartman, President, National President of American Public Works Association, Jasper Klein, he's the North Dakota APWA President, and of course Daryl and Dave. So I wanted to bring that to Commission and kind of show a lot of the work that Dave and Daryl have put in ice and snow control, not just this year, but the last number of years as the city's grown, the improvements in brine, facilities, and equipment needed. And I do want to thank the Commission for allowing us and giving us the budget to do that. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Any questions?
Any questions for the gentleman? All right, get ready for winter.
Yeah.
I would like to make one offer. If any officials want to ride along in a snowplow, get a hold of us and see what we go through.
I'll take you up on that.
I hope you do.
There you go. Thank you.
All right, moving into planning.
That got pulled, right? Did that all get pulled?
No, just the final plat got pulled,
Oh, okay.
if I'm correct, just the final plat. So, public hearing, which we've already had.
We already had the public
Yeah.
hearing, sir, yes.
So the rezone request for the acres is on the docket, and this is the second reading, final approval of ordinance 1730. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mr. President and Commission. This is the second reading, as you said, for the zone change that will allow the progression of the acre subdivision. There are no changes from the first reading of this at the last city commission meeting, and staff would recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hadley. Any questions for Mr. Hadley on ordinance 1730? Now I look for a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Oderman,
Second?
second by Commissioner Frederick. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting patiently.
He always gets to wait till.
Well, he doesn't have to sit back down now and then get back up,
Yeah.
so,
We should have like a sliding agenda where they get bumped up to the top.
all right. Okay, we will move into commission. This is your section of the evening. Is there any items you wish to discuss that weren't on the agenda this evening?
Loretta, not Loretta, sorry. Linda, any city hall updates?
Actually, I would like to defer to our project manager, Dave Clem.
Dave's the, oh,
Actually, City Hall, actually, everything's going pretty well. We got some casework that should be coming in end of this week, early next week, which would be all the remaining casework for commission. The commission side, we got some desktops and cabinet tops that we had to send back. They fitted them wrong, so that'll be coming in next week. But other than that, everything's going pretty smooth over there. A little bit ahead. We should have all the aluminum in next week for all the security doors and windows coming in. Also, our doors coming in to new City Hall is ADA. They do have the buttons that will open and all that good stuff. But other than that, everything's going pretty well. We got the generator all done, the backup to the backups there installed. We'll be doing some final walkthroughs next week on it. Upstairs, they're moving pretty briskly. But other than that, it's going pretty well. Not too bad.
Transition of staff, slowly?
Yep.
Slowly. Second floor.
Yep,
Yes,
second floor is what I was going to state, that upon project of painting, we've done 12 offices already that have been painted, and we are moving them in. Upon them being painted, then the technology goes in there, and then they're able to move in. So it's on a timeline of just continue moving them in, so. I'm still painting. No, I'm on number 12.
It was just a change of color thing? Is that what it was, or they just needed it?
They
or-
needed it, they needed to be refreshed up and just really cleaned up. So a lot of staff of finance, they did their own painting, but then you go in and you clean the offices and clean the woodwork and everything, just to sanitize. And then we're getting ready for carpet cleaning.
Yes.
Once that,
Yeah.
once we can
Okay.
get them up there, then all the carpet cleaning and duct work is.
Yeah, we had the carpet scheduled to be cleaned over the weekend, but talking with Linda, there's still a lot of stuff that's coming in and out, and a lot of offices with stuff on the floor, so we don't leave nothing behind, so we pushed it out for about 3 to 4 weeks. And then at that time, hopefully, with second floor, first floor being done on the west end there, maybe we can get it all done at once without having to come back, so we're kind of in that aspect, mode right now.
And then, commissioners, if you haven't noticed yet, the west side of the parking lot has been striped.
Yes.
And if someone asks you the question, it is crushed.
It is crushed asphalt.
Crushed
You know,
asphalt.
It is not dirt. Yes, we did spray some lines on it, and the reason we did that is just to get directional flow. We don't want people just kind of, if you look at the parking lot that American Bank occupies now, you got people parking any which way they decide. There will be delineators that are coming in where the orange cones are currently, so you can't just come through the alley and pull in. So it will be directional flow, and next year, the plan is to look at redoing that whole parking lot with lighting and everything.
Yep.
So,
And that was the plan from the get-go, is to put
correct.
Yep.
Yeah,
this is
it's currently
so-
temporarily.
Just so if somebody's posing the question to you.
Yeah, it's not dirt.
Oh.
It's crushed milled asphalt that
Right.
we did roll and pack in. Eventually, the lines will wear off, but temporarily, it's a pretty easy fix to get everybody with the mindset of how to come in and enter and exit. Yes, correct. Currently, I got MDU. They're going to put on the middle pole there in the middle of the parking lot. They're going to put 2 lights, and then we're going to put another one on the east side to where it is bright and lit up to where, because we leave in the mornings, it's usually dark, and go home, it's probably dark, so it should not be too bad. And then on the town square, growers will be moving their trailers around to where we can accommodate twos and make sure that when that kicks off the excavation, that we're not, impeding any of the progress to start that process. Other than that, and I do have a window cleaning on the outside that's probably going to take place tomorrow or Thursday, depending with the weather the way it is. So got a pretty good deal from a local vendor.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? Comments? All right. Not look for your motion to adjourn.
Okay.
So moved.
Thanks. Have a good
Second.
Yep.